I took Brugmansia and was gone for 3 days without knowing. I didn't plan on taking Brugmansia. I didn't even really know what it was. I knew it by its nickname, Angel's Trumpet, but only vaguely, from reading strange trip reports at 2 a.m. and thinking, who would ever take that on purpose? But a few weeks ago, I was staying with a cousin in Southern California, and he had this massive Brugmansia plant in his backyard, these ghostly white flowers drooping down like inverted horns. I asked about it, and he said, "That stuff? It's a natural sedative," and laughed like it was nothing. One night, alone after drinking a couple beers and scrolling through a rabbit hole of old Arrowhead pages, I decided to make tea from the flowers. I didn't think it would do anything serious. I used 3 blossoms, steeped them in boiling water, let it cool, then drank the bitter, earthy brew around midnight. The taste was metallic and oily and lingered like it didn't want to let go of my tongue. I sat outside in the backyard under a motionless sky and waited. An hour passed. Nothing. I remember thinking, this was dumb, and lighting a cigarette. Then I realized the cigarette was already burned down. I didn't remember smoking it. I checked my phone, but the screen was just static. Not digital static like TV snow. And I wasn't holding a phone. It was a remote, or a rock. I stood up, confused, and the backyard looked exactly the same, but also completely different. The fence was closer. The plants were taller. The stars had arranged themselves into letters I couldn't read. I turned to go inside, but the back door wasn't there. In its place was a hallway. Long, hospital white, buzzing with fluorescent lights that didn't seem to come from anywhere. I don't remember walking into it, but suddenly I was inside. The air smelled like toothpaste and vinegar. I heard someone laughing behind a door. I opened it. There was a man sitting in a chair in a windowless room. He looked up at me and said, "You're late again," like we'd done this before. I sat down without deciding to. The man lit a candle, even though there was no match. He started explaining something to me in perfect English, but I couldn't understand a word. It was like I was listening underwater. I blinked, and suddenly he was gone. The room was empty. The candle was still burning, but it was upside down, flame pointing toward the floor. I stood up and walked back into the hallway, but now the hallway had no walls. Just an endless line of doors on either side, all slightly open. Whispers poured out from the cracks, hundreds of voices, some familiar, some not. One of them was my mother's voice calling me to dinner. I opened the door it was coming from and walked into my childhood kitchen. She was there, smiling, stirring soup. I asked what was going on, and she said, "You need to wash your hands. They're covered in blood." I looked down. My hands were covered in something, red, sticky, but it didn't feel like anything. I turned on the sink, but only dust came out. I turned to ask her for a towel, and she was gone. The whole kitchen was gone. I was standing in a field. The sky was purple. A train passed by without making any sound. I looked around and realized I wasn't alone. 5 or 6 people were standing in the field with me, motionless, staring at the sky. I asked them where I was. One of them turned to me and said, "Don't look at the screen." I asked what screen. They didn't answer. I turned around, and behind me was a massive drive-in movie screen, like from the 50s, showing a live feed of me staring at it, The longer I looked, the more I noticed it was slightly ahead of me, like it knew what I was going to do before I did. I raised my hand. It raised first. I blinked. It blinked first. I looked away. I couldn't take it. I turned to ask the others what was happening, and they were gone. The field was now a graveyard. The gravestones were blank. I sat down and started to cry, but no tears came out. I don't remember how long I was there. Time didn't move normally. I kept hearing a beeping, like a microwave or a hospital monitor. I followed the sound and found myself in a room that looked like a DMV. There was a man at the desk telling me to fill out forms, but the papers were written in a language that looked like veins and thorns. I tried to explain I didn't understand, and he handed me a single key. "You forgot this," he said, and pointed to a door behind me. I turned, took 2 steps, and suddenly I was in my cousin's backyard again. It was morning. Birds chirping, sprinklers on. I was sitting in a chair. My shirt was inside out. I had no shoes. My tongue was dry as paper. There was a coffee mug in my lap, half full of sand. I had scratches on my arms. My cousin came outside, paused, and said, "Dude, where the hell have you been?" I started to answer, but nothing came out. I pulled out my phone to check the date, and I dropped it. The screen lit up. It was Wednesday. I'd taken the tea on Sunday night. I had no memory of anything in between. None. My cousin said he figured I was off with friends or sleeping at someone's house. I told him I'd been in the backyard the whole time. He didn't believe me. I checked my texts. Several people had messaged me. I had apparently answered a few of them with single words or random emojis. I didn't remember doing it. That night, I found flour residue in the bottom of a water bottle I must have carried with me vivson. The next few days were a blur of confusion, depression, and this deep, aching feeling like I'd left something unfinished. I kept waking up in the middle of the night thinking someone was standing in my room. For weeks, I would catch glimpses of people in mirrors, just behind me, reflections that didn't match. At one point, I tried to explain it to Elias, a friend who'd done real deliriants before, and he just said, "Yeah, man, that sounds like Brugmansia. You don't trip on it. It trips on you." I haven't gone near the plant since, but sometimes, late at night, I hear a faint beeping sound from the corner of my room. I always check. There's nothing there.